Hi y'all, I'm Frankie, coming to you with 12 of this week's best-selling fiction books and what people are saying about them. Topping the chart this week, we have The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, in which the lives of twin sisters who run away from a southern black community at age 16 intertwine, as one returns home and the other takes on a different racial identity. Kirkus Reviews and Publishers Weekly both gave this book starred reviews, with Kirkus calling it a rich, sharp story about the way identity is formed, comparing it to Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. Publishers Weekly called it impressive, saying that Bennett renders her characters and their struggles with great compassion and explores the complicated state of mind that Stella finds herself in while passing as white. Number 2, Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. In a quiet town on the North Carolina coast in 1969, a young woman who survived alone in the marsh becomes a murder suspect. Kirkus Reviews calls this piece of nature-infused romantic fiction charming, despite its implausibilities and monochromatic characterization, with Publishers Weekly describing it as an evocative debut with an unforgettable heroine. Number 3 is 28 Summers by Ellen Hilderbrand, in which a relationship that started in 1993 between Mallory and Jake comes to light while Mallory is on her deathbed and Jake's wife runs for president. Kirkus gave this a starred review, saying that Hilderbrand gets everything right and sets the gold standard in escapist fiction. At number 4, we have The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This prequel set during the 10th Hunger Games revolves around the adventures of young Coriolanus Snow, future president of Pan Am. Publishers Weekly called this a gripping mix of whipsaw plot twists and propulsive writing that make the story's complex issues vivid and personal. On the other hand, NPR's review called the book a lackluster, meandering parable and described Coriolanus' characterization as flat. Number 5, Sex and Vanity by Kevin Kwan. From the author of Crazy Rich Asians comes a nod to A Room with a View, in which Lucy Tang Churchill is torn between her waspy billionaire fiancé and a privileged hunk born in Hong Kong. Publishers Weekly calls it intoxicating, with plenty of catty and witty moments, and Kirkus Reviews commends Kwan as perhaps the only author who could pull off wealth porn in the current cultural moment. Number 6, The Guest List by Lucy Foley, in which a wedding between a TV star and a magazine publisher on an island off the coast of Ireland turns deadly. Publishers Weekly calls The Guest List an entertaining if uneven mystery, saying that the tension of the setup isn't quite matched by the reveals, though the nicely creepy setting compensates somewhat. At number 7, we have Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. This page-turning and big-hearted story about race and privilege is set around a young black babysitter, her well-intentioned employer, and a surprising connection that threatens to undo them both. Kirkus gave this a starred review, calling it charming, challenging, and so interesting you can hardly put it down, while Publishers Weekly says, Reed crafts a nuanced portrait of a young black woman struggling to define herself apart from the white people in her life. Number 8, The Summer House by James Patterson and Brandon Dubois, in which Jeremiah Cook, a veteran and former NYPD cop, investigates a mass murder near a lake in Georgia. James Patterson's notable works include the Alex Cross and Maximum Ride series, and he has teamed up once again with Brandon Dubois to bring us this standalone thriller, which has 4.3 stars on Goodreads. Number 9, Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. An artist with a mysterious past and a disregard for the status quo upends a quiet town outside Cleveland. Kirkus and Publishers Weekly both gave this book starred reviews, with Kirkus calling it an incandescent portrait of suburbia, family, creativity, and consumerism, while Publishers Weekly describes this powerful and suspenseful novel about motherhood as intricate and captivating. Little Fires Everywhere was adapted into an 8-episode miniseries which premiered on Hulu in March of 2020. Number 10, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. A reimagining of the classic Gothic suspense novel, Mexican Gothic is a story about an isolated mansion in 1950s Mexico, and the brave socialite drawn to its treacherous secrets. Publishers Weekly describes Mexican Gothic as an energetic romp through the Gothic genre, and Kirkus Reviews calls it visceral and heart-pounding, adding that fans of Gothic classics like Rebecca will be enthralled as long as they don't mind a heaping dose of all-out horror. Number 11, American Dirt by Janine Cummins, in which a bookseller flees Mexico for the United States with her son while pursued by the head of a drug cartel. Kirkus Reviews gave this a starred review, calling it a terrifying and tender novel, intensely suspenseful and deeply humane. However, the novel has faced criticism, with some Latinx authors calling it an example of cultural appropriation. Author and activist Miriam Gerba described it as a Trumpian fantasy of what Mexico is, and a noxious work masquerading as a piece of progressive literature. Finally, at number 12, we have Friends and Strangers by J. Courtney Sullivan, in which complications ensue when a New York journalist downshifts to become a mom in a small town and hires a senior at the local women's college to babysit. Publishers Weekly says that this authentic portrait of modern motherhood is intimate and incisive, while Kirkus gave it a starred review, saying that this perceptive novel about a complex friendship between two women resonates as broadly as it does deeply.